Okay, brings us to the next question in our investigation, and it's about those phones, and it's about these two witnesses. Why did the Bryans, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, destroy their phones? Here with us, former NYPD officer, retired Nassau County Lieutenant and Commanding Officer Mike Gould, and attorney Melanie Little. She's on YouTube. She is here as well. Great to see you all. All right, Melanie, why did the Bryans destroy their phones?
It's the question of the hour, isn't it, Vinny? I mean, the two third-party culprits that are left in this case, Brian Higgins and Brian Alberts, both destroyed their phone around the same day, right before they're served with a preservation order. Not only did they destroy their phones, but they got new phone numbers. So is it a coincidence, or was it an intentional destruction of evidence? It's going to be something for the jury to decide, but something that Alan Jackson will sink his teeth into once again.
Let me ask you, Mike, is there any reason that you could think of that a member of law enforcement would want to destroy their phone when they get a new one?
Well, I certainly think it was intentional. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Oh, yeah, they definitely destroyed these phones on purpose. But why would a member of law enforcement do that? Is there a reason? I'm not a member of law enforcement. You were.
Right. So it's their personal cell phones, number one, and I'm assuming it's not a police department cell phone. And I'm sure there's a lot of things on there that they didn't want anybody to see. There was a big night of drinking and partying and past and present texting and sexting and all of these things amongst all of them. I just don't personally think it's as nefarious as it suggests. You know, and I never really did buy into the conspiracy theory. So I think that there's problems on both sides of this, the prosecution and the defense. And of course, they have to make a thing. It certainly doesn't look good, but I don't think it's as nefarious. I think there's personal things in there that they didn't want anybody to find out about. And they decided, you know, when they woke up the next day and said, what did we do last night? Try to figure out what the hell happened. They made this decision, which will ultimately be obviously a bad decision.
Let's take a listen to Brian Higgins here talking about his phone being cross-examined by David Yannetti.
In September of 2022, you were served with a preservation order for your phone, were you not?
Yes.
After September of 2022, you never received anything in writing that canceled or lifted that preservation order, correct?
That's correct.
After September of 2022, you made the decision to dispose of your phone without consulting anybody about the decision to throw out your phone, correct?
Yes.
You took the SIM card out of your phone, correct?
No, what I testified to was that it's...
Did you take the SIM card out of your phone, yes or no?
I don't know.
Did you testify that that's what you do when you get rid of phones, sir?
What I said was that might have been the extent of it if I was to have done that.
And you either cut up the SIM card or ripped it up, correct?
I believe what I testified to was
I would have... I'm not asking you what you testified to. I'm asking you today, did you either cut up the SIM card or rip it up?
Cut it up or broke it.
Okay, Melanie, from the defense perspective, how and why are the phones of these two men so significant?
Well, since they're both potential third-party culprits, the issue is that by destroying both of their phones, they essentially destroyed all communications between the two of them. And both being law enforcement, they both knew exactly what they were doing when they did that. And understand also, this was 9 months after the murder of John O'Keefe. And so it just leads to so much, as if there wasn't enough reasonable doubt in this case, so much more reasonable doubt.
So, Mike, what you were saying before is there might be other things on there, and you say might not be as nefarious, but could there be other things on there that are sort of what got Trooper Michael Proctor fired from his job? You know,
100%, 100%. Remember, we use cell phones today like we're just having normal conversations that are just back and forth. You're talking about everything about your personal life, your professional life. Again, these weren't, I don't believe, police department phones, which obviously should remain very sterile. You shouldn't mess with them. But it's their personal phone. I just feel that they Their whole lives, they had everything was this one night of partying has now turned into such a tangled web for so many people. And they made this decision. Definitely agree with Melanie. This was a bad decision. This does not look good. And for those of us, not those of us, but I mean, we have a thirst for conspiracy theories going back to Kennedy and 9/11. So for people that want to, see this as a conspiracy, this certainly is going to feed them that kind of tidbits of information. I don't think it's a conspiracy.
Melanie, how is the defense prejudiced by this?
Prejudiced by the two of them destroying their cell phones?
Not having access to any of that information.
Well, what Brian Higgins did do right away within the days after the murder is he went to the FBI. He has a friend who worked there, his friend Matt Kelch, who's on the witness list for the defense. He showed Brian Higgins how to use the kiosk in the FBI building so that Brian Higgins could cherry pick the text messages between himself and Karen Reed. He then printed up all of those text messages on physical paper and brought them with him to give his statement to, I think it was Michael Proctor, who has other issues now, as you know. So, the issue is also that Brian Higgins lied about making any phone calls the evening in the early morning hours of January 29th of 2022. And now all of a sudden, some new video has surfaced of Brian Higgins on the phone outside the Sally Port at Canton PD. Had this video been turned over prior to the first trial or even during the first trial, Higgins would have been able to been impeached with it. But now all of a sudden, after the mistrial, all of this new video is surfacing. There's a lot more evidence that's going to come in this trial, and it's going to be must-see TV, Vinny.
Yeah, another reason why this trial is going to be different. Mike Gould, Melanie Little staying with us. Up next, why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe on the lawn? I'm Vinny Politan. We continue our investigation of the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Crucial to this case is figuring out why all these witnesses in the case, you've got so many of them, yet no one witnessed the alleged murder. Here's the story. On January 29th, 2022, Karen Reed discovered the lifeless body of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, in a snowbank outside of a fellow officer's home in Canton, Massachusetts. Prosecutors allege that Reed, after a night of drinking, struck John O'Keefe with her SUV and left him to die in the blizzard. She faces charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of personal injury and death. Karen Reed pleaded not guilty, asserting that she is being framed by law enforcement to shield others involved in John O'Keefe's death. Her first trial ended in a mistrial in July of 2024 due to a hung jury. The retrial is beginning with heightened public interest and scrutiny over the investigative conduct, including the dismissal of the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, for unprofessional behavior. The case has become a focal point in discussions about justice and police accountability. I want to begin this segment talking about the scene where John O'Keefe was found, which may be the scene of the murder, if you believe prosecutors, but at a minimum, it's the scene of death where John O'Keefe is discovered. I want you to take a look at an animation. This was done by Microdots, and what it tries to demonstrate is what it would be like for someone driving down the street like the plow driver and what you would or would not see driving past 34 Fairview. Now, obviously, it's an animation, but it does give us some sense of what we are talking about in terms of the size of John O'Keefe, where he was located, and what was found. Now, Matt Johnson, Court TV crime and justice correspondent, returned to the scene and took us there. I want to take a look at what he saw.
We're approaching the house. It's at a grade of a curve. Here's 34 Fairview. I'm turned in front of the house right now, and this is actually in front of the mailbox. So this is the position of the house in front of the mailbox. You can see the two entry doors that are constantly being talked about by these witnesses on the stand. Down the road, it turns, so anyone that was approaching from that direction, they're not going to see the front yard that much. And remember, we just made that other turn. So this is in the center of two turns, and it goes up, down. It's about a hilly neighborhood. It is hilly. And so if you're driving through here in the dark and in the snow, you might not see much. These are huge houses as they appear on TV, but the yards are very small, and it's a very dense neighborhood. You can see the flagpole is only about 7-8 feet away from where the street starts. There is no sidewalk. And you can see that from any direction that you're at in front of this house. I'm gonna back up. There's no one behind me. I'm backing up to the neighbor's home. So if someone was approaching this house to pick somebody up, this is what they would be seeing as they're approaching the mailbox that we've heard about and the driveway where a lot of these witnesses were also parked. And still, you can see where John O'Keefe's body was in front of that flagpole from any direction over here. It's a very dense neighborhood, but from this flagpole and where John O'Keefe's body was, I mean, look at how close it is to this yard. And also, that is the gate where the defense showed a video from the basement doors. They lift up, they're on the side of the house. You can walk through that gate and walk right over here to the flagpole.
Matt Johnson returning to the scene there. And when you go to the scene, I think you get a much different perspective of all of this. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe on the lawn? I mean, all those people coming in and out of the house, showing up, picking people up, dropping people off, getting in their cars, going home. Why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe on the lawn? Joining us, former NYPD officer, retired Nassau County Lieutenant and Commanding Officer Mike Gould, and Karen Reed supporter. She's Nurse Kim on YouTube and TikTok. Kim Whalen also with us. All right, Kim, I'm going to ask you first. From your perspective, why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe on the lawn?
You tell me, Vinny. The Commonwealth tell me, because if you have been to 34 Fairview, and just like that beautiful job that Matt Johnson did in the drive-by reenactment, it is so incredibly close and small, and there is no way, in my humble opinion, that there was almost baker's dozen people leaving this house party that were not able to see any figure in the snow being Officer John O'Keefe.
All right, Mike, you were there. We've got some video for when you went there, and you went at nighttime. From your perspective, why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe on that lawn?
Well, I'd just offer a couple of, there I'm laying there, and as you can see, it's at nighttime, and it is a different perspective. So I would just offer just a different explanation. First of all, there was a lot of drinking going on. That's, I think, not taken into full account from 4 in the afternoon until this time. And there's something called inattentional blindness. When you're driving or walking, you're focused, you have to block out things in your peripheral vision or you can't really function. So this inattentional blindness, particularly at night, you're driving, you don't notice things like a garden hose on the lawn, particularly a human being lying flat. We're not used to seeing human beings lying flat. We're used to seeing people standing up. So my explanation is that people leaving that party are driving, they're focused, they got tunnel vision, and this lifeless object lying on the ground is very difficult to see unless you were looking for it. You wouldn't see necessarily garbage cans. You drive by these things when you go home at night. You drive down your block at night and pass things that you're not really looking at towards your neighbors' houses. And from the perspective I was at, it's not that terribly close. I could see where people could miss it just by coming in and out and not paying attention or not looking for something.
Now, there was one person driving on the road that night who was not at the party, was not drinking, and his job was to pay attention to what was on the road, and that's Brian Loughran. He is the snowplow driver. Let's take a listen.
When you made that first pass by that residence at 2:45 in the morning, sir, with your headlights on, what, if anything, did you see on the front lawn in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
If there had been a 6'2", 200-pound man lying in the snow there, would you have seen it?
Objection.
Sustained.
What time was it, to your best estimate, in terms of when you would have approached Fairview and Cedar Crest again?
3:15 to 3:30. At that point, I saw a Ford Edge on the side of the road.
Where was it parked on the side of the road?
In front of the Albert's house.
Where in front of the Albert's house?
By the flagpole.
Okay, Kim, how important is Brian Loughran in trying to determine what's going on there at that time of day?
Oh, he's incredibly important, Vinny. He is the key to what exactly the timeline is. And I recall also the Department of Public Works in Canton, Michael Trotta, going through F-150s, F-250s, and F-350s. And he knew everything about that plow route and his drivers. Lucky affirmatively tells us there was nothing there at first pass at 2:30 a.m. And the most concerning thing to me, Vinny, is if these plow routes were started at 2:30 and Karen Reed allegedly struck Officer John O'Keefe at 12:32 a.m., how did all that taillight magically land back in that yard? Not one of the plows moved any of the fragments of taillight. 45 pieces didn't get moved up the street at all with the plow routes? I don't think so.
Let's take a listen to one person who did see something when she was leaving the party. That's what she testified to. Here's Julie Nagel.
I did notice behind Sarah and Jen, I did notice something out of the ordinary, like a black blob in the ground by the flagpole.
Can you describe how big an object it was that you saw?
I'd probably say like 5 or 6 feet, like long.
And you were in a car such that if you thought that you saw something that could have been a person, all you had to do was tell the driver, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you tell the driver that you saw somebody who was in trouble?
Well, I said it out loud in the car.
So is it your testimony now that you said out loud in the car, there's a person who's in trouble?
That's not what I said, no.
You didn't mention a person at all.
All right, Mike, what do you think of the black blob?
Yeah, it's a black blob. And again, just for the record, I'm neutral on this. I think the prosecution and the defense have a lot of difficulties here, and that's what resulted in the hung jury. And unless they're changing or they're coming up with more compelling evidence on either side. So look, you know, this might sound crazy, but I've searched for suspects in the darkness of night. And I've actually was stepping on them because they were motionless and they were in dark clothing under my feet in a vegetated area, and I was stepping on them. And it was only my police dog that alerted to me that I was standing on a human being. So it's nighttime, vision, alcohol, all these things pay an effect. And I'd say the same regarding the snowplow operator. I know it's almost hard to believe in hindsight, no pun intended, we can look and see these things. But when you're driving home at night in a snowstorm or in the rain, when I drove through there, it was raining out. And it's just hard to focus on the road, let alone. So yeah, different circumstances, different conditions. But I can see some reasonableness in it's not that mystifying to me that nobody could see it.
Mike Gould, Kim Whalen, great to have you both on the program. Thank you so much. Still to come, How different will the openings be this time around?
How much input do you have on the opening statement?
It's collaborative all the way around. Alan owns it.